Anthony, to be able. So thank you everybody for joining us. Anthony's going to be on shortly, but I'd love to just get started. I will roughly introduce Anthony and I. I am Lisa Young. I serve as the faculty administrator for open education and innovation at the Maricopa Community Colleges here in Phoenix. And Anthony Palmiato serves as the editorial director at OpenStax. And so this is we've been kind of exploring the intersection of OER and microcredentials and are excited to be able to bring this to you today. And so we do have some objectives that we would like to share with you and accomplish today. One, we wanted to work with you on developing knowledge related to microcredentials in workforce development. Where we'd like to align the 5 Rs and other OER characteristics with microcredentials and workforce needs. We plan to help you identify and pursue opportunities for industry institutional collaboration. And we hope that you will be able to plan and implement productive project structures and approaches to incorporate OER into workforce development programs, if that's something that is within your role at your institutions. Definitely something that you can engage with. And I'm going to skip over that Mentimeter because I just did that with you. But to start off, we kind of just wanted to level set the what microcredentials are and how they impact the workforce development. And Anthony, are you back
I am
in?
here, yes. Do you
All
hear me?
right, I'm going to let you
Okay.
do a quick introduction and
Oh, no, you did a great
take it
job.
from
Hi,
here.
I'm so sorry, everybody. I just had a little trouble joining. Didn't recognize me. Thank you, Lisa, for starting off, and thanks everybody for joining. I'm Anthony Palmiato from OpenStax. So glad to be here. And again, thanks so much, Lisa, for starting us off and for all the organization for this. So should I go on this? Network, yeah. So basically, yeah. So as Lisa described the objectives and terms are important here because we hear a lot of words. Microcredentials and different organizations have different meanings, and then it intersects with badges and stackable and other associated terms. So we're talking about microcredentials at they're credentials that verify, validate, and attest that students have achieved specific skills or competencies. They're different from traditional degrees and certificates. They're typically offered in shorter or more flexible time spans. Those can move together into a microcredential pathway, but the microcredential itself is usually a relatively brief as compared to traditional college degree programs and courses. And then they can be put together into a microcredential pathway, which is 1 or 2 microcredentials that has an off-ramp, a pathway to a livable wage, on-ramp to stackable credentials. So what do we mean by that? So basically, a student can start working using or get a different type of employment, get a promotion, start doing something different in terms of their work. Basically, as soon as they get the microcredential, or maybe after passing an associated test after the microcredential. But basically, the microcredential is that pathway. Or it's one of several stackable credentials. And it could be actually both of those things at the same time. So that's what we're talking about as microcredentials and microcredential pathways.
And one of the things that's interesting about microcredentials and microcredential pathway that we're really excited about exploring is that while these can be incorporated with and integrated into courses, they can also be standalone, and it can bring students to us that may not be our regular student population. And so we're really excited because it's an opportunity to have students come into the community colleges for a short time to get that livable wage. But then we have this opportunity of the stackable credentials, the micro credentials, and then the opportunity to go on to our regular, more academic credentials and continue their education and continue to level up as with their employment and be able to upskill and be able to be eligible for higher level jobs as they continue. This is something that we have been working on, and this is really what I've envisioned as a microcredential framework in regard to values associated with the microcredential work. And first of all, access. Access ensures that microcredentials are inclusive, accessible to a diverse range of learners, and they often have flexible entry points with open access pathways. They are often low cost materials. They and they also, sorry, I just totally lost my train of thought there. It's late in the afternoon for me. But yeah, so they have access. It's creating access for students who may not have considered themselves to go to into higher ed. They involve employer and industry engagement. So we're making micro-credentials specifically to address needs in the workforce for the community. And they're not developed in a silo as of just the academic institution, but they're developed with validation of skills and engagement by industry and specific employers really helping co-create these micro-credentials in their pathways. And so this collaboration and coordination happens between faculty, between workforce development in the organization, with the industry partners, often with government officials to really coordinate and build these micro-credential pathways. As Anthony mentioned, they're skills-based. So we are validating skills, mastery of skills at a certain proficiency level. And that quality aspect of it, that proficiency level may be higher and greater than just passing the course. And so when an employer sees an open digital badge as a representation of that micro credential, they're knowing that that student has mastered that skill at a high proficiency level. And the relevance of that, having relevance of contextualization of these micro-credentials for the specific industry needs. And the quality loops back to the assessment. And so the assessment is critically important to be really well developed to be able to show that mastery of the skills. And one of the things that we've been talking about as we look at open education is how do we make assessments for micro-credentials that are openly licensed, that have that rigor and, really the academic integrity of those assessments for industry to really know that the student has mastered it. And so that's kind of like a fun little piece of this puzzle that Anthony and I are playing. Clarity and transparency is critically important. Our institution is aligned with the Trusted Learner Network, and the trust and the privacy and the ability for students to choose how and whom with they share their credentials is critically important. Also, in regard to clarity and transparency, is the open framework and interoperability of micro-credentials and open digital badges that represent those micro-credentials. Anthony mentioned that these are short in duration. Our micro-credentials are 2 weeks to 12 months. If it has to go over 12 months, it's not defined as a micro-credential. And as Anthony mentioned, they're stackable and they are shareable. There's the Credential Engine Registry, and with all of the micro-credentials that we develop at Maricopa, we are registering those with the Credential Engine Registry so that people can see what our micro-credentials are, what skills are engaged in those, what the rigor and the what kinds of assessment and what that cutoff is for the proficiency of those skills are. And so there's a lot that goes into this micro-credential framework, and we wanted to share with you this opportunity of what we kind of envision as that micro-credential value framework. And that to give you just kind of that foundation. And now Anthony's going to share a little bit about durable skills, which is something that is definitely aligns with some of the things we've been talking about.
Yeah. Thanks so much. So I hope everybody appreciates it. I mean, that is, I hear so many schools and people at colleges and so on. We want to get started in micro credentials. This framework that Lisa's sharing here, I think is really important. I mean, it won't work for every school, and I'm sure there's others too. But I mean, Lisa and her team have done so much work on this And it's still evolving, in Maricopa, I'm sure too. But these are some frameworks and some elements. And then so when we talk about durable skills, I think it's important to remember that many of the same things here apply, right? And maybe the direct skill-based aspect of, say, how an industry, how it might be a little less specific to an industry, for example, but it still needs some industry involvement. They still need to have some sort of assessment associated with them so that they can, show to employers and to future, the pathways for learning that they address, that they're assessed and the student is proving that they know what they're talking about regarding that skill. So the durable skills themselves are those skills, things that are sort of, there are really two sides, and these are called different things as well. But when we're talking about durable skills, we're talking mostly about the skills that talk about how you use what you know. So as the students are gaining those skills in fabrication or automotive or nursing or education or computer science or whatever else, how they're using that. So that's critical thinking, communication, collaboration, creativity. And then also the character skills that make up, fortitude, growth, mindset, leadership. So it is both of those things. And we hear a lot about this. And I think what's also really important about durable skills is that you can see everybody from a university president to a new adjunct to the head of the college program at Disney or some talking about how important durable skills are. But very often there isn't space where these are actually taught for students. Maybe it happens on campus in some programs, but there isn't as wide an offering about this. So I think, and I think one of the evidence points there is that so many people, especially in the higher ed space, keep talking about this, and so many employers keep talking about this, what a core need it is. So that's the durable skills, which we think kind of can pervade all the different disciplines that the students work in. And OER has a specific place that it could play in all types of micro-credentials, but especially in the durable skills, because open educational resources, if you're creating micro-credentials, we've talked about their length, their size, their alignment with skills and so on. Those skills might be different by discipline. They might be different by the same sort of skill area, the same domain, the same arena might be, the name of the domain, the basic functionality in the arena might be the same across many states or many schools or many employers. But the nuances within that are going to be different. And so OER provides a great mechanism because the resources can be remixed. Half the page down, if you don't cover that anymore, that can get lopped off. It can be recombined with another resource. If we need to bring in a little more background on the financial aspects of additive manufacturing, well, that's how OER can bring those things together, depending on the competencies and skills that you're going for in the individual micro-credential. That's really hard to do with other types of contents. All rights reserved content, even if an organization, a publisher wants to release it, there's all sorts of complexities there about credit and royalty and other things like that. OER, a lot of this material is there, and so many people that are creating OER, I don't want to make too many assumptions here, but it's OpenStax, we make a lot of textbooks, but we're only making textbooks in about 70 courses, right? And so many people that are making other OER aren't able to make a full textbook. Maybe they're making a module, maybe they're making a chapter, maybe they're making 2 chapters, maybe they're making 2 weeks worth of their course. That's all OER that can be mixed and incorporated into the micro-credential, as long as we're all working together on how to use that. So the other aspects of OER that make it really viable for the micro-credential is just the principles of OER itself, the 5 R's. We think about how they apply, right? So basically, an institution, an organization, a school, they of course, if they're going to make micro-credentials, they can and probably should make them to serve their students, right? Of course. So you can take that content, all that content that you got from other places, make it your own, and of course, have it for your students. And then, you get that flexibility with the licensing, the type of content, how it's coming in. And then, of course, in terms of any cost that's associated with it, usually those costs are far lower than a for-profit publisher commercial entity using the same content. It might not be free, depending on the other things that are involved, but it's usually the cost is far lower. So, but then it can also be redistributed. So that once an organization, a school, anybody else creates this, they can then share them out for other people, maybe within their same state, maybe within their same domain, right? I mean, across the disciplines, so an automotive area, physics area, biology, nursing, whatever, to share within their discipline, or across other, on a geographic basis, other schools in the system, other schools in the state, other schools in the region. They can, we're talking a lot. I've sort of already repeated the part about remixing, the fact that you can take up all the content from different places. And the other things that can include are, people are making pieces of content that are instructional, but when you're creating any OER, any educational resource, assessments, activities, ancillaries, even, those things are all really important. And they're very hard to make, but that's what a lot of OER programs, statewide grant programs, that's what it's focused on. Can you make a set of assessments to test this topic? Can you create study guides to help students through this topic? All of that material, if it's OER, can be incorporated. And then, of course, many of these skill areas that we're talking about are being updated all the time. New competencies are coming in, new considerations. If new technology is being used, not to teach, but in the discipline itself, in the profession itself. So that all has to be revised and can kept updated. OER makes it easy to do that because you can go in and make those changes. You don't have to get permission every time you do it. And that all leads to the ability to reuse this content over and over and over again, and flavor it for different use cases within an institution, within a program, across an institution, across many institutions.
And so one of the things that we've done, and I know this isn't pretty, I tried to use AI to make it pretty, and that was just a disaster for me. So I definitely need some skills from some of our other presenters today and tomorrow. But this is what we've kind of envisioned as a micro-credential OER framework. And so what you'll see is that we've overlaid the values, those micro-credential values and framework that I shared just a few minutes ago, with the 5 R's. And so when we think about like reuse, there's the access to the micro-credentials and the access to education. There's the assessment piece, and there's the duration that these materials can be reused over and over again. And then as we move into the revision, they can be modified for those different durations. They can be modified for employer and industry engagement. One of the things we've talked about is that there's one example is that there's a real big need in advanced manufacturing for micro-credentials in vacuum technology. Don't really know what that means. I'm not a subject matter expert, but this has been expressed to me. And each of the major employers have their own proprietary vacuum technology. But could a micro-credential be put together that has many of the skills that are like transferable from company to company, and then have proprietary information added perhaps later, so that we're meeting the employer and industry needs. And so can we help them with open education so that they can use them and revise them, not really redistributing them because of their proprietary information, but still filling a really important need with open education. And again, continuous improvement through quality, that's part of our revision, and keeping them skills-based. As the skills change for some of the different workforce areas that we're addressing, the materials need to be revised. This also goes into the remixing, where we conceivably could take different skills and remix them for different purposes. We can also contextualize them for different purposes. That collaboration and coordination involves a lot of remixing, keeping the materials relevant and relevant for different areas. And that idea of being stackable also lends itself to our remixing. And not only are we remixing the micro-credentials, but we're remixing the learner experience as they engage with their journey. And we're providing them with different on-ramps and different off-ramps to work. Retaining, having those stackable credentials, being able to earn those micro-credentials, being able to leverage open digital badging, and being able to leverage the different technologies that we have, the blockchain technology, to be able to retain them and also share them. Right now, when you earn a micro-credential and get an open digital badge, that is owned by the learner. But when you graduate with an academic credential, the institution holds that credential. And so instead, that kind of ownership and that retention goes to the learner. And then the idea of being able to redistribute them, looking at that clarity and transparency, blah, 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 clarity and transparency aspects, being able to be shareable, as we mentioned, and having that access. So as we look at these frameworks, there's so many opportunities for this crossover for micro-credentials and open educational resources. So an example of this is we're working on a micro-credential right now in the finance industry. And we are looking at developing a specific durable skill to meet the needs of the finance industry. We are actively working on making it openly licensed. And then this finance micro-credential with this durable skill provides learners opportunities for a livable wage of about $50,000 in benefits upon completion of a 12-week program. They also can continue on with associates with certificates of completion, associates, and bachelor's degrees. And in terms of kind of looking at how all of this comes together, we've got the industry engagement. They have validated our skills. They've committed to employment. It's a short duration of 12 weeks. It's high quality. The assessments are there, and we're actually leveraging a third party national certification for some of this assessment. Um, and we're looking at that redistributing where this can be shared with other institutions who have an interest in this and that have that workforce need in their communities. And so the idea is that this will be shared across the nation for access and to be able to fill the workforce need with students being able to get a livable wage and be able to get those stackable credentials. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the challenges with using OER for micro-credentials. So I'm going to hand it back over to Anthony.
Sure. So, I mean, I think one of the challenges is, whether, I mean, just the logistical side of it, whether OER does exist, right? I think that's one of them. Is there any baseline OER already for it or not? And if there is, or something that's related to it that can be built, I think that's, of course, that's a pathway. But let's just acknowledge, we have to know there is an OER for every discipline. Many of us in various forums, the Spark forum or so on, we see what do we see each other doing? Does anybody have this? Does anybody find this? I have to develop a program for this and I'm having trouble. And these are very valid questions and they're issues, right? So that's one thing. But on the other hand, one of the other aspects is, and I think Lisa basically spoke to it earlier is, are organizations able, or are we able to find things that might be proprietary that couldn't be put into OER? So is there anything in a microcredential that couldn't be shared? And one of the issues could be that perhaps an industry partner says that a certain asset can be used within a certain school, at Pima, at Maricopa, at ASU, wherever it is, they can do that, but then it can't be shared elsewhere, right? That could be an area where the OER licensing as a whole might be a problem. But are there ways around that? Yes. Perhaps there are ways around that with, sort of a case-by-case permission, or can there be portions of the OER portions of the microcredential that are sort of sectioned off as OER, and then portions that are not. I mean, we're getting better and better, I think, as a group, the OER community, at being really diligent and detailed on attribution. You go to many OER, whether it's a section or a chapter or an asset or something, there's a million credit lines at the bottom, right? And that's there. It can be sometimes imposing, but it's there to give that attribution as it should be. Right. So we're getting much, much better at that. So that could be one way where things should be separated and structured in a certain way that allows that challenge to be overcome. And then, so in that way, I think that, one on the other side, the flip side of that challenge is that, I think often in our experience, at least in my experience with some of the industry partners, they, may be willing to give some information to other, other entities, commercial entities, and so on. But so many of the partnerships that they look to be engaged with educational institutions are those based at increasing access, and that's what OER is all about. There's many other things about it too, but OER is really great at increasing access for instructors to get into something, for schools to use something, and of course students to gain the education they need. And so since that's a key aspect of OER, just leveraging those partnerships, saying, hey, we're going to create this asset that can be used and then can be used across, and impact so many students for all those corporate responsibility engagements, for all those workforce development engagements that these industry partners have. OER creates a great case for them. It's not just a PR story. I think it's very meaningful to them because they're providing access to a great many students that can come in to their profession and to their company itself.
And Anthony, we have 2 minutes left for
Yeah.
so I thought maybe we should take some questions. So we didn't get through all our slides, but we can definitely share them and hear if there are any questions from the audience. Any reactions or thoughts? Is something that you've thought about in terms of micro-credentials and OER?
I would like to try it out, but I don't even have a text that I could develop. I mean, there's curriculum that I'm always developing. So this is just like one more layer to it that I would like to explore, but in the future. So that's why I guess I'm so quiet.
That's okay. That's okay. And say what institution are you with?
I'm with U of A.
U of A, excellent. There's some really good work happening at U of A with this micro-credential work. Melody Buckner is engaged in some of this work, so she might be someone to contact to see about some support with this.
Thank you so much. Yes, I mean, definitely like that's a layer that I'm not ready to do right now, but definitely interested because there's no reason why we shouldn't be sharing all these materials that so many people I'm basically in medical humanities, so I'm developing curriculum for the School of Medicine, and there's so much need. And the reason I do this work is because I think the community it can be very impactful for the community. So I guess that's the reason we're all here. So the micro credentialing is very interesting to me. So what's the person that you referred me to?
Melody Buckner.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. And I see that Travis has incorporated some micro-credentials into one of their assignments, and so that's really exciting to see how you could incorporate it with more. Travis, what school are you with?
I'm at Eastern Arizona College.
Okay. Oh my gosh. Is that I have a contact at Eastern Arizona College. Let me just look that up real quick for you so I can tell you who we're working with at EAC. Jason Eddington and
Yeah,
Susan Wood. We're engaged with them for some micro credentials, and they're doing some of the work as well.
Jason's literally 2 doors away from me right now.
Ah, fantastic. So definitely chat with him if you're interested.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. Excellent. I see that we are out of time. Are there any other questions? Thank you all so much for coming to our session. I hope that we've sparked some interest in bridging open education and micro-credentials.
Please reach out anytime. I'd love to hear what everybody else is doing, and glad to share what we're doing. So thanks so much.
Bye.
Thanks, Lisa.